Hello everyone, this is a late summer tour of my subtropical garden here in the Portland, Oregon area. We're starting at the west side of my property, going down a bit of a hill here, a couple phormiums. On the right there used to be a very large Norway maple that I've since removed and planted with a few palms and some other good things. There's still some of the shade plants remaining, so they're looking a little crispy, but in time they should get a little bit more shelter. Kind of curving down here in front to the left here, a couple of larger Trachycarpus fortunei that I planted about 5 years ago. Washingtonia robusta from last year, and there's a pretty decent waggy palm there in the middle. Here's a couple of my eucalyptus, neglecta on the left, and passiflora, subspecies Niphophila on the right. A shady corner that is a nice place to sit in the afternoon. On the left here is a small mule palm, as well as my waterfall. The hummingbirds use it quite a bit, both for drinking and bathing, and then I usually get a lot of goldfinches in the evenings that come by for a drink. On the right is the herbaceous kind of tropical border I put in this year. And red banana on the left. That goes in the garage during the winter. It's not hardy here. And then here is the wall of Trachycarpus fortunei. There's about 12 of them planted along that fence. Just a little bit of an overview of the grassy area. I have two very big dogs, so they require a bit of lawn, so that's why it still remains. Largest clump of Mimosa right there. I have multiple clumps throughout the yard, but this one always seems to do the best. It always maintains a reasonable amount of large bananas. And here's the remaining tree from when I first bought the place. It's a Mimosa. It's actually looking pretty bad this year for some reason. Large Sable Louisiana. And then here is the eastern gate, and I've tried to make this a little shaded jungle pathway. Some trackies in here and a few other broadleaf evergreens. We're going to take a look at the shady part of my yard. There used to be a large gunner in here, but now I've replaced it with some spider's webs fatsia, the giant Pacific chain fern. That's a rhododendron sinogrand, Schefflera taiwaniana, and there's a couple of Livingstone chinensis in here as well. Empress Wu hosta, and this is the back side of the two big trackies. They've been in there for 5 years. And here we are on the hill. This is a Pitasorum ilisoides, I believe. And this is a Fatsahedra. It's a intergeneric hybrid between Fatsia and English ivy. And then here is one of my seed-grown eucalyptus. This is a yellow gum, otherwise known as Eucalyptus subcrenulata. And what distinguishes this is the green leaves. They're not blue, and eventually the bark will peel and strip. And when it does that, it reveals a bright yellow color. This tree's a little too small. It's probably next year it might start shedding some of its bark. Now we're looking at some of the big metapanics. This is a Davidii, and it's in bloom. There are insects all over it. And this one has interesting leaves. They're not all the same. Some are singular, some look like a mitt, some have, they're trilobed. My poor Brahia armata, which is in recovery mode, but seems to be chugging along now, working on its second spear. I actually had spear pull from the rains this spring. You can see some of the older fronds are dying back. So Trachycarpus nanotol, I put that in because I wasn't sure that the Brahio was going to make it. Behind that is a Pahuta cow or New Zealand Christmas tree. And then this is my kind of unknown Butia or Butia hybrid. And this palm took a little bit of damage as well. But as you can see, it's been growing quickly. And then back in here, it's a Tasmanian tree fern, Dixonia antarctica. There's actually 3 of them in this clump. It's kind of tough to see. This was the first year I could actually determine that there was more than one plant in there. Just a little bit of a look at the crown. Mahonia, this one is Media Charity. It's one of the larger ones. Kind of pokey. And Livingstone Natita. It's been in the ground 3 years now. Seems to be doing quite well here. It's got very nice glossy green leaves. Handles the weathers a lot better than Livingstone chinensis. It's starting to get a pretty nice little trunk on it. And on to the next area. This is actually a Lithocarpus henryi. It's an evergreen oak. Got fried in my front yard last year from the heat dome, so I moved it back here to let it recover. And a loquat. Every once in a while we do get fruit here. This one's been growing quite well. That's kind of the height of where it was last year, so it's more than doubled in size. Very pleased with this one. And hardy tapioca, otherwise known as Manahot grahami. And another waggy. And then here's the Schefflera delavii. Very large leaves, quite a tough plant, even though it doesn't look like it, and it is sending out multiple flower stalks this year. Now here's my little Washingtonia robusta. Did quite well for me last year. They're kind of borderline here, but you can see it's put out a lot of lush new green growth. The fronds that show a bit of browning on them are the ones from last year. So pretty much everything you see is new this year, all those leaves. And then my waggy here has put out I think even more fronds than that Washingtonia. The Washingtonia is working on its 9th and 10th, and the waggy's beaten that. This is the smaller of my mule palms. This one's in a little bit more shady spot, but it's definitely getting a good size to it. You know, it's 4.5 feet or so tall now, and it's got that really kind of soft texture to it. Nice new spear coming up, so I think that might be the 3rd frond of the year. And then down here you can see some fruit on my kumquat. First year it looks like it's going to be fruiting for me. I planted that last year. A couple tikis here, and then trying some Spanish moss on the southern Magnolia. I do have a neighbor who does say it thrives outside in winter here, which I'm not surprised because we don't get all that cold. We're in zone 8B or 9A. And one of the pups off of my Tetrapanax. This one's putting on some good size this year. Unfortunately, my large plant died for some reason, but this one is already getting up there. It's about 7 foot tall. Tucked in underneath the trachys here, Chamaedorea microspadex, also known as the bamboo palm. Not so good here. Doesn't seem to like frost on the leaves. And then down here, I'm just trying to show you the trunks. They also, like I said, they call it the bamboo palm or hardy bamboo palm. And then there's a real nice bluish sable minor. It's one of the first, might have even been the first palm I planted in my yard. And then here's the big clump of Mimosa, over 15 feet tall. And there is a flower pod with some bananas. There's 2 in this cluster. Underneath here is probably the second palm I planted, a Camerops humulus. And I call this the octopus needle palm. It doesn't have one main trunk, it just has a whole bunch of trunks and they're all about the same size. It's very odd. And then tucked under these elderberries that are being weighed down is a Sable Louisiana. It's the second one I have. I planted this one, I think I might have planted it last year. So not so fast for me, but it's kind of dry and not as much sun as it needs. Now here's a sable that has done very well for me. This is my large Brazoriensis. It's just over 7 feet tall overall height. Quite a large palm. It's kind of tough to tell with those elderberries behind there. And very late to flower this year, but it's flowering. It's sent up 2 flower stalks, and these wasps or hornets, as you can see, are really upset with me being here. They were attacking the camera. And no trunk on this one, or you could say it's a few inches. It just keeps getting wider and wider. And this was the damage. First time I've ever seen it on this palm. This is from that moisture. I had this happen to a few palms. It just kind of rotted out the spear, but it's so that was the one that took the most damage, and there's 2 more there that are, one has a little tiny bit on the tip, and the new spear is fine. So, but you can see very large fronds on this palm. The largest one that I know of, at least in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, now we're headed over to the shady pathway. It's a chocolate mimosa tree. Very slow growing for me for some reason, but the color on the leaves, I can't really think of another tree that looks quite like it. And this is, it's called the willow sparkler, Stachyurus lalicifolius. And this gets long pendulous chains of flowers in the spring. Really an interesting plant from China. And behind that, you will see a large Scheffler Taiwaniana. And then I recently redid this section here with some shade-loving plants. It is on the north side of my house. And when you look down low, you will see this is a Gary hammer, this a type of cast iron plant. And then there's a Chamaedorea radicalis that the rabbits chewed down to nothing that's since recovered. My original Sable Louisiana, which actually was in full sun, no longer. And this is from New Zealand. Kind of an interesting wild looking plant underneath the southern magnolia. And yet another needle palm, nice shade grown one. Very slow for me in the shade though, I will say that. And tucked back in there, we have another Mahonia. It's another media charity. This is the new shade area I did. This is a fuchsia. I can't remember what variety it is. And this is a sickle-leaved holly fern, Certimonium descapulae. It's a bit of a tongue twister, similar to the Japanese holly fern, but slightly different shape to the leaves. And here's another one of those little fuchsias. And then down here, I put this out last year or the year before. I have a few Chamaedorea radicalis cast iron plants, that sort of thing. Some hardy begonia right here. It's got the nice red undersides. And then the zebra fern. You got to be careful with these because the slugs love them. Beautiful fern, but kind of tough. And that Aurelia back there that the slugs destroyed as well. And then now we're walking from the west gate and we're going to head to the east gate just to kind of give you a different perspective. My yard is very wide and narrow, so it does create some challenges in regards to design because you don't want it to look like a bowling alley. It's a nice Abutylon right there, the trackies, and then here you go. I've tried to make a lot of curves and cut off the line of sight. And on the left is that new deciduous border, some bananas, cannas, annual flowers, that sort of thing. A couple of my friends here on the right. Trying to block the sun a bit. Trying to do things when it's sunny. It was about 94 degrees when I was recording this, so kind of a warm day, especially for so close to September. And here we are, working our way back up the hill. Here's the view I get to enjoy sitting under the tiki umbrella. Sit back and have a nice cold drink and admire the garden, especially when there's a nice breeze coming through. So thank you everyone for watching. If you have any questions regarding any of the plants you see, if you can point them out and tell me the time frame, I will definitely try and respond as to what they were. Have a great one everyone, and thanks for watching.